I agree.
So what does liberal mean, Phil? My centrist friend.
Okay. Overly liberal, James.
What does you can't tell me what overly liberal means unless you tell me what does liberal mean?
That someone who is concerned about non-cultural immigration, if you like.
What does that mean? What does non-cultural mean?
I mean, James.
Have you ever noticed how someone says, "I'm not racist," and then spends the next few minutes trying to justify why they don't trust an entire group of people? That's exactly the conversation you're about to hear. What starts as a calm debate quickly turns into a revealing exchange where a few simple questions begin to expose what's really behind the argument. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. In this exchange, James O'Brien takes on a caller who insists his concerns are about culture, not race. But the more James asks him to explain what he actually means, the more the argument starts to unravel. Instead of debating opinions, James simply keeps asking for clear answers. And that's where things get really interesting. Watch closely, because sometimes the most revealing part of a debate isn't what's said. It's what someone can't explain.
Very, very much in the centrist position. I'm a member of a very progressive pan-European political party. I fully accept that, there are problems with migration. And I think that that's where I'm coming from, because I genuinely believe that the liberal left, well, not so much, but just the over-liberal.
Well, can you just tell me what those words mean?
Right. Okay. People like yourself.
Well, that doesn't tell me what the words mean. What do the words mean when you use them?
Liberal, in
yes.
the sense of basically wanting, full human rights at every stage of political engagement,
but only for humans,
which is ideal. Don't get me wrong; it's an ideal, but it's a false ideal, and that it can not possibly reach. So
what can't we reach?
People like yourself.
I am going to insist that you explain the words that you use, because you've made it about me.
I'm saying is I'm saying liberal people have swept.
Yes, but you haven't told me what liberal means, except
under the carpet.
No, we never talk about anything else, Phil.
No. I'm sorry. You've swept it under the carpet.
We haven't swept it under the carpet, Phil. In fact, today the phone in today.
That is not a problem.
No one said there isn't a problem. There are people drowning in the English Channel, Phil. That's about as big a problem as humanity can conceive of.
That is a huge problem. I agree.
So what does liberal mean, Phil? My centrist friend.
Okay. Overly liberal, James.
Well, you can't tell me what overly liberal means unless you tell me what does liberal mean.
That someone who is concerned about non-cultural immigration, if you like.
What does that mean? What does non-cultural mean?
I mean, James, if I'm literally having to explain everything I say to you, but you do this, and this is your mode of operation.
Well, then you knew what to expect. You must have given it some thought before you rang in. You can't tell me what liberal means. What does non-cultural mean?
It means, if people, say, for example, I have a Polish family live next door.
Yes.
I might even not know that they're a Polish family because they blend in.
But they speak Polish.
Now, if you have
but
people
who
do not blend in, for whatever, it could be any European migratory family, if you like, or whatever,
right.
or community. It doesn't matter. The point is they blend in.
How do they blend in? They've got their own shops.
Because you don't notice them. James, I mean, this is ridiculous. This is the problem. You can't see the problem you create.
What is the problem with non-Polish immigrants?
You had a conversation with a Christian who objected, to homosexual issues and blah, blah, blah. And you went through Leviticus and Numbers.
That's correct,
pointing out, well, why don't you accept that? You would never do that with the Quran.
Oh, I have done it with the Quran.
No, you haven't.
Yes, no, I have. I have. I think the best example. Phil, why? I mean, you must appreciate, Phil. It's turning into a game of. It's turning into a game of gammon bingo, this, mate. So just pause and listen for a minute. I'll tell you.
Huge difference.
House. So I think the best example I can give you is when people were complaining about the Quran being set fire to. I asked a caller if he would object to someone having it on their computer and pressing delete, and the consequences were similarly hilarious to a Christian trying to use Leviticus. So,
and a while ago, you also went on about someone who was objecting to Islamic practices, and you made a conversation. His name was Richard, and you brought in the sock guy on the plane.
That
Richard,
was nearly 10 years ago.
Every person who is James, you are.
That was nearly 10 years ago, Phil.
Deny that. But it's obfuscation.
So here we are on the radio talking about why the country has spent all week talking about Gary Lineker, and you've come on and said it's because there are people that don't blend in.
No, I've said it's because people in the media will not acknowledge.
What does blend in mean?
We almost Brexited because you drove swathes of people, normal people who were just concerned about immigration.
Right.
You drove them into the hands of the extremists.
Okay.
And that is the problem. And that is the problem across politics.
But extremists use language like blend in, don't they?
Are toxic.
Phil, I'm going to keep you on the line until I can get a word in edgeways, and I'm going to insist that you explain the language that you've used. So I want to know what it is about a Polish family moving in next door that lets them blend in the way that, well, what families don't blend in, Phil?
Well, I'd be absolutely honest. I would not like a trenchant Islamic family moving in next to me.
And how would you know? How would you know the depth of their religious beliefs?
I know the culture, James, and this is the problem.
How would you spot it, Phil?
That there is a genuine issue. What about
what would it be, Phil? Again, I need to ask you some more. I need to ask you some more questions, Phil. We're talking about you and your imaginary neighbours, all right? So we can go back over my greatest hits of gammon baiting if you want, but I think it would be boring for people who haven't spent as much time watching my YouTube clips as you have, which is considerably more time than I have, actually. So what is it about your imaginary Muslim neighbours? What do they do that makes them undesirable neighbours for you?
Because, look, there is a cultural difference.
But my questions are really straightforward, and everybody else, everybody can hear me talking. What do they do, these imaginary neighbours, that makes them undesirable?
Well, they're imaginal. So how they're, as you said, they're imaginary. So how can I really state exactly what I'm saying?
Because you know that you don't want to live next door to them. What is it that these imaginary neighbours do that you're confident a Polish family would never do? You know there are Polish Muslims.
Well,
do they blend
Muslims,
in?
James, that doesn't make the point.
Do they blend in, though? Do the Polish Muslims?
Anything about their Bible?
You keep talking, Phil.
It is the fanatics in all these situations that steal the show because they are.
Do Polish Muslims blend in, Phil?
Don't care. But if you do not acknowledge,
do Polish Muslims blend in, Phil?
A large swathe of the silent majority who are.
Do Polish Muslims blend in, Phil?
Pardon?
Do Polish Muslims blend in?
It all depends whether they were abiding by, strict Islamic practices.
And how would you tell? How would you tell? How would you tell that? How could you tell that? But just from living next door to them.
I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole, James. This is quite ridiculous.
Mate, you've come on the radio and talked to me about people you wouldn't want to live next door to, and I'm asking why. Why, Phil?
I am totally. I don't.
What would the neighbours do? What would the imaginary neighbours do that would make them undesirable?
Bone in my body, but I am culturalist, James.
Say that again.
I'm not prepared.
Say that bit again about the racist bone in your body, because some people missed it.
I don't have a racist bone in my body.
But you don't want to live next door to brown people.
No, I do have a culturalist bone in my body, James.
Culturalist? What does that word mean?
Culture.
No, culturalist, you said.
Well, as in racist, James, for goodness sake. I'm just using
exactly,
it in the same manner.
Yes, exactly, you are. You're not supposed to say that bit out loud.
What?
Well, that you're basically being a racist, but calling it culturalist instead.
No, I'm not being a racist. There is a huge difference.
Right, so what would these people do that makes them undesirable neighbours, Phil?
See that, then it's your
well, you can show me, Phil. They're living next door to you. And they're living next door to you, Phil.
James.
What are they doing? What are they doing that makes them undesirable neighbours, Phil? Apart from being brown.
Well look. Let me just shift it a little bit.
I wish you'd answer one of my questions. You don't know what liberal means.
I'm trying to answer it, but you won't.
Well, what do they do? No, you just literally said, let me shift it. That's not answering. That's shifting it, Phil. These are your words that I'm playing back to you. What do the imaginary neighbours do?
Look, I'm fortunate enough to live in a very kind of typical, English, small town.
What does English mean?
I don't have to suffer. I don't have to suffer cultural, if you like, shocks on my doorstep.
Like what?
Well, I don't. I mean, I'm being absolutely honest. I don't want to see women having to, cover up.
Right.
No Western woman naturally covers up.
What if they're Polish?
And we wonder why these other women do.
What if they're Polish?
That is cultural, essentially, indoctrination. And if you can't recognise that, that is the problem.
Well, it's not a problem. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of face veils, but I wouldn't have a problem living next door to somebody who wanted to wear one any more than I'd have a problem living next door to someone who wants to wear flip-flops.
Well, it probably would matter how many were there, James, and just how religiously, if you like, they abided by their doctrine.
Okay. So it's the face masks and the
point is, you will not acknowledge that people do have a concern about that.
I acknowledge it by asking what the concern is, Phil, and now we've got there now. You don't want to live next to women who wear face veils.
I don't want to live in a country where women are subjugated. No, I don't.
No, so you want to introduce laws.
You
want to introduce laws telling them what they can and can't wear.
It's quite staggering.
There's no cognitive dissonance here, Phil. What would you do?
I'm not saying for 1 minute that all Muslims are, like that, but the fanatics
like
are,
what, Phil?
as in the Christian fanatics.
Like what, Phil?
Like, what do you mean, like what?
You said, I'm not saying... Well, this is just the strangest conversation. You keep saying things. You said, I'm not for one moment saying that all Muslims are like that. And I said, like what, Phil? And you said, what do you mean, like what? How can you not understand? Just calm down a bit, Phil. Slow down.
There are a lot of Christians and a lot of Muslims who you would not know they were Christian or Muslim.
Right.
That's the point. There are an awful lot.
So they're blending in.
They're nominal.
They're blending in.
Nominal. They're blending, they're nominal. And this is what causes people, stress. Because
face veils.
We all conform. We all try. There is a norm, and that's another thing. The norm has been lost.
Yes.
There is a norm.
Can you describe the norm to me, Phil?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, the norm is, like, for example, at a school, the norm is a school, outfit. School uniform. That's a norm.
So you want everyone to dress the same?
No.
So what's the norm, Phil?
But if you
slow down a little bit.
If you studied standard deviation, you'd see that the norm encompasses quite a range. But it is the standard deviation. Okay?
What's the norm?
And outside of that, there are the extremes.
Phil, this doesn't make sense. What is the norm?
No, I know. Okay, James, it doesn't make sense to you, but that is the problem.
What is the norm?
And you cause the problem.
I cause the problem. What's the norm, Phil?
Because you will
what's
not
the norm,
acknowledge
Phil?
that there are perfectly decent
Phil, stop
reasons
repeating yourself and tell me what some of these words mean.
About immigration.
What does the norm mean?
The norm is what people feel, comfortable. I would not consider, skinheads in bother boots the norm in dressing in society. Okay, that kind of wear I would not consider the norm in English society.
Right. That doesn't help me much.
That's an extreme. No, it doesn't. But the point is, the norm is broad.
Well, what is it then? Just put it into English words.
James, I'm not going to go down this. I know what I'm saying.
You keep objecting to me, asking you the meaning of the words you use. So what's the norm? So let me run through some of the words that you've used. All right, people should blend in more. Polish people are all right, but Muslim people aren't.
You're putting words into my mouth.
No, these are all words you've said.
I'm quite sure I didn't say they should blend in more. I said, this is what, all I said is people,
there's a tape.
If you blend in, then you're not so...
Then you can live next door to Phil. If you blend in, you can live next door to Phil.
Justifiable.
You keep interrupting me when I'm interrupting you. I'm running through the words that you've used. You definitely used the phrase blend in. Can we agree about that?
I probably did use it, but not in the sense that you just used it.
Okay,
Sorry,
so what
yes,
sense did you use
did.
it? What sense did you use it in, Phil?
Well, I'm saying if you blend in, you
Yeah.
are not noticed. That's the point.
Yeah, so what does it
If
mean,
you don't
blending
blend
in?
in? Like I've lived, James, I've lived in
Phil.
4 different countries in my
Can I
life.
give you a tiny
I've lived
little
and
bit
worked.
of advice?
And
Would you mind?
Yes,
Because I
please.
think
No, do, please.
obsess a little bit less about people who are trying to promote harmony. Try not to be so frightened of
No,
things.
that's my argument.
No, it's not, Phil.
You think
No,
you're
it's
trying
not.
to promote
No.
harmony, but
You
you're
want everyone
actually-
to blend in,
you've
Phil.
caused-
You want everyone to blend in. Just relax. Seriously, pay attention. This comes from a place of love. You've said yourself that you're nowhere near all of the
such a
things.
sanctimonious guy, James.
Well, you
really
said
are.
you were a centrist.
You're hilarious.
So
You're hilarious.
all of the things that you said yourself you have no personal exposure to, you don't need to be frightened of.
James, all I'm saying is,
Everyone's heard you, Phil. Everyone's heard everything you've said. I'm just telling you, you don't need to be so scared.
You just answer me one question now, James.
I'll try.
Just imagine that we were nuked. Britain was nuked.
Oh, my
or a
days.
large part was Britain nuked. And we had to go overseas when we'd hoped that other countries would open up their borders to allow us in.
Yes.
Okay? Now, tell me, would you go to a theocracy?
Would I go to a
be honest.
theocracy?
Yes, would you go to Afghanistan? Would you go to
I'd go where I
Pakistan?
speak
Would
the
you go
language.
to-
I don't know what point you think you're making. I'd
Or
go.
would you
I'd go to
a
Australia
European
because I've
country?
got
Just
friends
answer
there.
that question. You just answer that question, okay? Just tell me, and then tell me why would you make that decision? If you had a choice,
Stop
James,
talking and
where
let me
would you
answer.
go?
Let me answer the question. I'd go wherever was safe.
Yes. Well, okay, fine. You'd go wherever you're safe. But given the choice, where would you go? You've got a choice of Europe, or you've got a choice of going to Iran.
Greece. I'd go to
Syria,
Greece.
I'd
go to
Other
Greece.
countries.
I'd
Where
go
would you
to
go?
Greece.
You'd go to Greece.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a bad place. I would kind of agree with that.
What
they've
are we
got
talking
problems, but
about
they're
now,
not bad.
Phil? What do you think we're talking
I'm
about
just
now?
trying to point out in the most simplistic terms something
Yes.
that you resolutely refuse to acknowledge.
What
And
am
that
I
is that
resolutely
there are
refusing to
cultural
acknowledge?
differences. There are cultural differences, and in some countries, the main cultural driver, if you like, is religion, and that causes an awful. And if you don't mind saying, before Brexit,
Greece is
the
quite
issue
religious.
of immigration was totally conflated because most
So
people.
there's an awful lot going on in your
weren't
head,
worried
and I
about
don't.
immigration
Phil,
from
okay,
Europe.
Phil.
They were concerned about immigration from outside of Europe.
Well, why did they vote to leave Europe then?
Because it was totally conflated by people like you who made out that
But
there
I
was
was
no
constantly
issue with
pointing it
immigration.
out, Phil. I mean, you know my viral
No,
clips. You
you
watch
were
them on
pointing
YouTube.
out from
You
your
remember the guy
position.
who rang in
You
to
were
say that.
literally-
Phil,
okay,
Phil,
James,
Phil,
so
Phil.
I've said what I said, and you can rubbish it for all you want. But I know
I haven't
I'm
rubbished
happy with my
anything you've said,
political
Phil.
stance.
All I've done.
I'm very,
yes, I
I'm-
know you are,
I'm
Phil.
very-
Yes,
okay.
and I hope all your neighbours may all your neighbours blend in, Phil.
You are a sanctimonious person. You really are.
May all
Cheerio,
your
James.
neighbours blend in.
Yep, and yours. Bye-bye.
And that's what made this debate so fascinating. The caller tried to separate acceptable immigrants from unacceptable ones, but every time James O'Brien asked a simple question, "What do you mean by that?" the argument became harder to defend. Instead of arguing back, James kept asking for clear definitions, and that strategy exposed the biggest weaknesses in the caller's position. The most revealing moment came when the caller described himself as a culturalist rather than a racist, yet struggled to explain what the difference actually was. That single exchange became the turning point of the entire conversation, because once the labels were stripped away, he found it difficult to clearly justify his claims. Whether you agree with James or not, this debate is a reminder that strong arguments should be able to stand up to straightforward questions. When they can't, people notice. Now it's your turn. What do you think was the most revealing moment of this debate? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.